I hope she can hear us. Oh, I don't think my mic will work.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today for DFW SEM. We're about to get some really good tips from Cindy about paid search, but to start off with, we want to introduce you to DFW SEM a little bit. So we are in our 18th year. A fun fact is that Cindy was back with us during one of the founding years. So she knows her stuff around the search engine marketing world. This was all made possible by a bunch of our board members, our treasurer, Bart Peters, our secretary, Jenna Williams, our VP of hospitality, Chris O'Connor, and our VP of state of search, Chris O'Connor, VP of membership and registration, Kevin Adams, our VP of sponsorship, Jordan Pearson, and then our board member at large, Tim Shane. If you want to help volunteer, go ahead and email membership@dfwsem.org. Also, a big thank you to City Central, who sponsors us each month and lets us have our meeting here. State of Search is back on this year, and we are doing it in person at one of our original locations, the Dallas Renaissance Hotel. So get your tickets now. Early bird is going to end soon, so you don't want to miss out on that discount. And members always save more. If you're not a member, we've got a couple of different membership options. We've also recently introduced a virtual corporate membership where you can attend our monthly meetings virtually for up to 6 people in your business. And then if you're looking for a job, go ahead and email info@dfwsem.org and we can help you. We've also got our amazing job board. Next month, we're going to have Can You Trust Online Reviews with Curtis Boyd. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Cindy.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's make sure that I can do some sharing here. Can you see my screen? Is my screen sharing? Okay. Technology. Okay, great. Oh, don't need that. Thank you for everybody for coming and joining. I'm super excited to be here to speak on staying responsive with Google's updates. As we know, Google likes to change things up on us quite often, unfortunately. And one of the ones that they are doing this year is actually getting rid of ETAs, which is extended text ads, and rolling out full board on 100% responsive search ads. So we're going to talk about today how to get ahead of the game, start testing that out before we see everything roll out 100%. So about me, so I am currently the media director at Tandem Theory. I've been in the paid media business for about 14 years. Paid search is my first love. I've done across multiple channels. I also love long walks not on the beach, but to the fridge. And this is my 5-year-old corgi named Winston. He is the love of my life. Yes, I am getting married in September. He is not the love of my life, but that's okay. He understands the relationship. And then I'm also a cookie connoisseur, as anybody who's ever worked with me knows this. I absolutely love cookies. If you're a cookie business, call me. Cool. So what's the deal? What's going on and why are ETAs going away? So in June, Google is going to sunset extended text ads or ETAs. Until then, you can still create new ones. You can edit any existing ones. But after that, you can't create new ones. So we're only going to be able to utilize responsive search ads from then on out. You can still run anything that is existing, which is great. So go ahead and start creating those and having them in the account. You can pause them, you can activate them. However, you cannot create new ones or edit them. So what does this all mean for everybody? So for today, you're guys going to learn a few things. One is how to effectively utilize your RSAs in place of ETAs, increasing your creative excellence score to drive better performance. And then also tips and tricks on just how to stay ahead of this update. How do we want to be able to utilize this, get personalization, and being able to understand the reporting that comes with it. Cool. So why RSAs? So Google has said that RSAs that have a good or excellent ad strength can actually drive up to 9% more clicks than anything that has a poor ad strength. What does that mean? So the great thing about RSAs is you're actually able to see an ad strength score. There's different little tips and tricks that Google actually gives you to be able to increase this feedback. So it's really great. Just note that this 9% is account by account based. So everybody is a little different. Every account has different nuances. So just caveat that. Just want to make sure everybody knows. Cool. So let's get back to the basics. Let's understand what goes into building a really great search ad. So first, we need to understand what the difference is between ETA and RSA. So an ETA, extended text ad, that's the OG. But if you really want to go OG, that's the standard text ad with like 90 characters, and that was not fun to be able to build. This is great. You have up to 3 headlines. You have up to 2 description lines. So that third headline may or may not show. And that is just Google's way of testing out the different options of how people want to be able to show ads and show the ad to be more personalized. With ETAs, you can actually run as many different variations as possible. My best practice is I wouldn't do more than 5 because then you're skewing the data and that causes a lot of issues with your data. And so you want to keep it minimal. And then what you see is what you get. So when you type in your ad for an ETA, that's what it shows. So this is an example on the bottom that I pulled off Google. So the headlines are eco-friendly fashion, outfits of occasion, free international, and then the different description lines on the bottom. That is what an ETA is. It's what you see, it's what you get. On the RSA side, it's a little different. You actually have more options. More options is great. Who doesn't love that? Especially when you're trying to write more ads, and especially when you're limited in character count and you want to say so many different things, but you can't. This is a great thing about RSA. So you have up to 15 headlines. You have up to 4 description lines now. So similar to ETAs, you still have a third headline that may or may not show, very similar to the ETA side. The difference here is you're only allowed to run 3 RSAs per ad group. So that restricts a lot of that ad testing. However, we're going to give you a little tips and tricks on how to be able to rotate and being able to show the different options. And then another thing is, unlike ETAs, it's dynamic. So the headlines and the description lines mix and match and can appear in any order. So, which is really great. So again, it's that personalization, being able to drive better content and better ads to consumers that are out there. And so with this, consumers, it doesn't affect them. They won't see a difference. It's the practitioners on the back end that will see that. You're going to be able to upload more options and being able to create more different personalizations and just drive better results. So what does this all mean? Not all searches are the same because different ads appeal to different people. That's the point of RSAs, and that's why Google rolled this out. Because I can search for the same query as everybody in this room, but I'm going to get a different ad because I've either searched before, I'm on a different device, I may be in a different geography. I could have, different options here and there. So Google is trying to be able to get that personalization, show you different ads here and there so that it can get more granular, show and get somebody to take that action. That's really the main point of RSAs, which is amazing. So I want to do a little test. Everybody pull out your phone, please. People virtually, you can do this too. And search for white wedding heels. So I did this the other day. Obviously, I'm getting married, and so I've been searching for a lot of wedding things. So this is one of the ones that I have been searching for. And so show me what you see on your device compared to maybe what I might see. So here is an ad that I got the other day. So there's no paid ads in the bottom. There are shopping product listings, which is great, but it's not necessarily personalized to me. However, on desktop, it's a little bit different. So I have more options. So Google knows I shop at Neiman's. Google knows I shop at Saks. Google knows I like a coupon, unfortunately. So it's a little bit different in how I was able to get different ads and different times because it knows how I interact with people, how I interact with ads. They know that when I did this search at 8 p.m. at night, I'm usually sitting on the couch, browsing on my phone, just looking for random things. But if I'm going to search for something on the computer, I'm more likely to take an action and actually convert and buy. And that's the point of an RSA, is because they're wanting to drive more of that personalization and being able to continue to get people closer down the funnel and being able to get as relevant as possible. So now you're like, okay, so how do I do this? Well, let's do this. So content is still key. So there's a lot of factors that still go into writing ads that are still very important. That's very similar to how ETAs were when we first started writing ad copy. So you still want to focus on writing specific, relevant, and attractive ads because that's what's going to really get people to click on those ads. So within the ad copy, so make sure you include promos, specials, or offers. You have a $10 offer, put that in one of the headlines or potentially put that in a description line. Emphasize on your brand. That is super important, is making sure that your brand is called out, especially in the copy, whether it's in the headline or the description line. Also utilize symbols, trademarks, copyrights. That's a really great way to stand out against competitors. And then include top keywords in your headline description. White wedding heels, that is a great example. Make sure you have that in your headline or in your description line so that it is going to drive more volume that way. Sorry about that. This likes to pop up sometimes. And then being able to use strong call to action. So get whatever you want somebody to do, whether it's shop now, buy now, come to the store. This is a really great place to be able to utilize that. Typically, yes, put that in your description line as well, but I think also test it in your headlines. Get people to see it. And then that option as well will be able to show in your headlines, different variations and different options, get people to understand what they're looking for. Include value propositions and benefits. So if you have free curbside pickup, put that in one of your headlines or description. You have free delivery, anything that makes you stand out, that is different than other competitors out there, do that. It's always a great way to get more clicks and conversions. One of the really cool things to do, most of the time, you always want to fill out as many character counts as possible. You have 30 characters for the headline and 90 for your description. Test not filling it out. See what happens. And that way that Google will a little shift it back and forth to be able to test what works and what doesn't work. And this is a great way to do that. And then the number one thing, always land your ads on the most relevant page. That's super important. That's going to drive down your CPCs. That's going to increase your quality score. And that's just going to drive better conversions overall. And then another tip that I love doing is in case that you don't want to necessarily put a top keyword in your ad, utilizing keyword insertion and location insertion. Again, it's that personalization, getting it closer down the funnel. That query will be able to show and get people to click and actually convert in the end. So there is, like I said earlier, there are ad strengths that go into each of the new RSAs, which is great. And being able to have that, you're able to take that and be able to strengthen it. This is a really cool feature that I wish ETAs also have, because it's a great way to know, like, how are my ads performing, and what can I do to make it better. So Google gives you 4 different options. There's an excellent score, a good score, average, and poor. And within each option, when you are creating this, you have options to be able to see, can I add more headlines? What headlines are different variations? They actually give you ideas based off of crawling your site, based off of other ads that you ran, which is amazing, because sometimes you get to the point where you're like, I don't know what else I need to write. This is a great way to be able to get that. And same thing with, keywords. I'll tell you the popular keyword within that ad group to be able to add in. And then just different tips like make your headlines more unique or make descriptions more unique. Utilizing this will help you increase your ad strength, because the higher the ad strength, excellence, and score, the better performance in the end. And we'll talk about a little bit more about performance when we get to the next slide. One other thing, to be able to improve your score is prioritizing different assets that you see from your ETAs. If your ETAs performed really well, let's put that in there and copy and build upon it. This is a really great way to be able to know what has already worked and build upon that and to be able to expand even further. And then focus what's on makes your business unique, landing people on the most relevant page, making sure your copy matches the page, making sure everything is very consistent. Relevancy is super key when it comes to RSAs, and it's going to increase your ad strength even more. And then continue to test different combinations. One thing that's really cool with RSAs is you can actually pin headlines and description lines. So say you have a promo that you want to show all the time, or you have free delivery and that's such a big promo, you want to make sure that everybody sees it, you can pin that headline and you can pin that description line. So it's forcing Google to say, hey, I want to show this all the time. So that is a great way to do different testings and I guess say control the way Google's showing the ad, and a very good option for ETAs going away. So different testing options there. And so to be able to have the ad strength, to be able to continue to build upon this and just grow, one thing that really you want to focus on with RSAs is achieving that creative excellence. Google has said, a combination of one RSA within a good and excellent ad strength, plus having 4 ad extensions per ad group can drive a 10 to 15% higher click-through rate. That is huge. With click-through rates, and then also with extensions obviously build more on the page, which is really great. So you're building more on the SERP, you're being able to grow that, you're already dominating the top of the page. Adding in the creative excellence, being able to have the RSAs that's super specific and being able to continue to test that is where you're getting that extra 10 to 15%. Again, there's a little caveat with a little star. This is a nuanced account by account. So you have to kind of make sure that you are following the best practices and being able to drive a really great campaign structure. So let's look at performance. So this actually is a insurance account that we ran. So this is all 2021 data. They were struggling this past year as a lot of advertisers out there. CPCs were significantly high just post-COVID. 2020 was super low. 2021, everybody decided that they wanted to get into the search game. This caused a lot of issues for a lot of brands. And so we saw a really high CPCs across the board. And so we started the year off pretty rocky. So, we had been running RSAs for quite some time. And it wasn't until this year we took the initiative, okay, let's really focus on growing our creative excellence score. Let's get our extensions up. Let's make sure that we get excellent or good as much as we can and continue to grow as much as we possibly can. So when you're looking at this, the chart on the left, you're showing CTR versus CPC, different ad types. So the yellow is the responsive search, the red is the extended text, and then the blue is a call-only ad. Since it is an insurance company, we also wanted to drive people to call. So ignore the blue since it's not as important as the extended as responsive. You can definitely see here how much higher the CTR is for the responsive. We're thinking like 10%, while the ETA is probably about 5%. CTR, while our CPCs are significantly lower than the ETAs and the call only. Really great results there, especially since we saw such high CPC at the beginning of the year. Like, you started seeing your CPCs just continue to come down this way. I wish I had put that chart in here because it was really beautiful, but I didn't. There is a caveat though. If you look on the right side, so this is like conversion rate versus CPA for ad type. So similar colors. So one thing to really note here is how high our conversion rate is for ETAs. So our ETA's conversion rate is 45%, which is super high for us. However, our main goal for this account is driving a lower CPA. And that's what you're seeing here. Our RSA CPA is very low and lower compared to both call only and the extended text ad. So it's kind of a give and take. And so we know that we're putting that bidding strategy on there to say, hey, I only want to spend this amount, and that's what we're getting. And that's what Google is trying to do, is prove that, and that's what it did. So it's really a give and take. It's like, is conversion rate more important to you, or is it a CPA? And so when looking at this, you want to make sure that it is meeting the best practice and meeting your business goals as well. And then diving deeper into actually primary, the different KPIs within each actual ad strength. So I have this broken out by the ad trends on the bottom. So you'll see that 7% of all of our ads in the account are excellent, 17% is good, 33% is average, and 43% is poor, which is pretty significant, as you can see. So, however, even though 7% of all of our ads are excellent, look how high our CTR is. The CTR is blue. So it's driving a much more significant CTR. It is driving also one of the lowest CPCs, but also showing, I would say a good conversion rate and a lower CPA. But you also see the kind of caveat here, where good and average also perform pretty well. Where average, you see CPCs and good, average and good, the CPCs are pretty about the same. And then conversion rate are also about the same. CPA is also about the same. But it comes to the poor, that CTR is super low compared to the other ones. And so that is significant, because Google is now trying to show that ad more, because the higher the CTR, the more likely somebody is going to convert. And the ad is super relevant to that consumer. And so obviously if the conversion rate is a little bit lower, that's obviously a website thing that probably need to get fixed. So really great to be able to look at this and understand what goes into your ads. There's obviously a deeper analysis that goes into this, and being able to understand it and being able to pick and choose what works and what doesn't work. However, there is a lot of hype with this. There are a lot of caveats. It's not all rainbows and unicorns, unfortunately. There is a lack of robust reporting. It's very directional metrics. So you see here, I pulled this directly out of Google. So like 400 ads, 120, etc. The only metric I have is impressions. And that is, it's worrisome because of the fact that if you're trying to drive conversions, how do I know what combination works if you're driving conversion, only giving me impressions? If you're only giving me impressions, that doesn't necessarily equal a conversion. It's just driving volume, or it's just showing the ads multiple times. But I don't know if somebody actually took an action on that ad or that combination. So that's a limitation that Google hasn't quite worked out yet. If anybody knows if Google is going to work this out, please let me know. I've already asked every single Google rep I have, like, hey, when are y'all going to roll this out? And they keep saying they're going to work with their tech team. That's Google for you. Another thing, painting headlines and descriptions, even though it is great to be able to have those ETAs and make it to control that aspect, it does actually lower your ad strength. So we've tested this out a few times where it's like, okay, let's see what happens if we pin this and try to promote just this promo. It lowers our ad strength. It doesn't necessarily lower our performance, but if Google is trying to decide how often you want to show an ad based off of that ad strength, then that becomes a hindrance. And so Google might say, like, I only want to show my ads for an average ad strength like 5 times versus an excellent 100 times. So that becomes that balance. And so there is a caveat there, and I think some things that they probably you need to work out and being able to understand that, because you're also restricting Google to do what it does best with their machine learning. And then another thing is ads can perform pretty optimally at an average ad strength. As you saw, like I had 34% of our 34% of our ads at an average, and it still performed really well. But obviously Excellent did really well as also. It did probably the best. But yeah, it's testing it out, understanding what goes into the ad strength and what is important to you, what is in that ad, and how else you can be able to grow and expand that. Another thing, there is a longer ramp up time for performance to stabilize and see growth. So unlike ETAs, typically you can probably see stabilization 2 weeks after running an ad. This does take a little bit longer just because you're having so many different options to be able to test out. So Google is taking a little bit longer to be able to say, okay, let's ramp this up, let's do this. And so that becomes worrisome when it comes to this, as you might only have a monthly promo and you want it to be able to run only for 4 weeks. But by the time it's out of that learning phase, the next promo is up. So that is a little bit of a hindrance on that side. And then kind of that last bullet point, the caveat is, yes, RSAs drive much more efficient traffic. It also drives a lot more traffic, but it also could be that Google favors this ad type. And I've seen this multiple times where we have ETA, we want to run a certain promo just on that ETA, but that RSA will always show more often because Google is trying to favor that. So it could be, it's like, yeah, RSAs are driving more efficient traffic, but it's probably because Google favors it and Google wants to show that ad more often. So there's a lot of give and take when it comes to RSAs. That's why it's so important to test and start now, looking at what is important, looking at your ETAs, what has run really well, being able to continue to test off of those pieces. So, cool things about that. Okay, and so some key takeaways. So utilize your best performing ETAs and build upon them with headlines and descriptions. As I just said, what has worked really well for you for your ETAs, build upon that. Utilize that and being able to continue to grow off of it, adding different description lines, adding in different headlines that might be something that you couldn't fit into an ETA. This is a great place to be able to utilize that. Leverage that feedback from Google and increase your ad strength score. That's a really great way to know if you want to be able to increase your CTR, lower your CPCs. And it's a great way to know if your ad is working or not. And then focus on relevancy and stand out with different value propositions. Again, when it comes to ad copy, this is the first thing that somebody sees when they search for you. It should be make your brand stand out. It should call out every possible value proposition that you have. It is what your brand stands for. And so when somebody is searching for you, it's really important to make sure it's relevant, it stands out, and so that people are wanting to click on it. And then also use pins to be able to show anything that is important that you want to make sure that messaging is out there. Creating one RSA per ad group with a good excellence score to make sure that you are achieving that creative excellence. And then start testing those ads now. Don't wait until June because you want to be able to start testing. You want to know if it's working right now or if not going to work. And you can also continue to test. Just remember that there are only 3 RSAs per ad group. That is a big limitation, but the idea here is to get that personalization, being able to rotate different headlines to different description lines and see what's working, building that combination out there. And this is a really great way to be able to start testing. Do that now, start now, and build upon it one ad group at a time, and just continue to grow from there. Any questions? More pictures of Winston.
Can I ask a stupid question?
No, of course.
Okay. So I just picked up a client and he has the smart ads running.
Okay. Yeah. I am not a huge fan of smart campaigns or smart ads because you lack that control. You lack control of what Google is going to show, where it's going to show. Yes, some of them work really well. There are some like local campaigns that's a whole smart thing too, where it's like you literally just put your money in there. This is how you target and just let it go. It's done really well for us to be able to do that, but it also is one of those things where it might not work depending on your goals. So I would probably do an A/B test with that and see if you want to be able to have a separate campaign doing that manual, running the RSAs, and see what it does and how it works. Because otherwise, you're never going to know true results out of that. Because Google's a black box, and sometimes they don't show you what they want to show you.
You can't see anything.
Yeah,
and
that's restricted.
I've run into several people who have done that, and I've known like a long time ago never do that, right? Because I did it wrong way back in the day, which was a different name. I can't remember what the name was. That's just how long I've been. But I'm not as experienced as you are. But I know that it's easy because you can click on it and you fill it out, and away you go. And somebody's they're throwing $50 at it every month, and yeah, they get a lot of impressions and they get a lot of clicks, but there's really no way to track, are you really getting the calls?
Correct. Yeah, that becomes worrisome because now you don't know if you're getting actual results from it. And so I would run an actual A/B test against the two, having a manual campaign, adding the keywords the normal keywords you would run, and then also run the different ETAs versus RSAs and see what works best.
Mm-hmm.
And this will help potentially figure out what's working better for you. I'm just not a fan of the smart campaigns. There's just not. I have a control problem, and especially when it comes to my campaigns, it makes it worse. And so if I can't go in and pause keywords or write my own ads,
but if you only get one ad,
exactly.
and Google decides what keywords, they think that they know better than you. So really you're wasting your $50, $100, whatever it is a month, because you have no way of really tracking if it truly is doing well.
Yeah. So, and I would recommend definitely doing the manual option, going the old school way, just creating the campaigns yourself. They are rolling out with Performance Max, which is their new way of the smart campaigns. I've been told many times by our Google reps that it is better and new and improvised and innovative. I don't necessarily agree with that. I haven't tried it yet. I think we're going to test it out and just see what happens, maybe on one campaign. Just because I want to be able to see, is it actually as great as you say it is? But I mean, obviously make sure that you have money with it. Make sure you have set a really good goal when it comes to that, and being able to have it as a separate goal compared to everything else in your campaigns, because otherwise it will kind of skew your results.
And then I have another client who's very specific in chemicals, and he sells like 4 chemicals. And it's really hard because Google keeps wanting to put all these keywords that have absolutely nothing to do with what he does. But he likes to listen to what Google tells him to do.
Yeah, that we've run into that a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's just the best practice. So just really reiterating, this is a black box, and there's no data. And I would even show that. I would even provide it. It's like, this is all I get. This is all the information I have. You want to know more? We can't, unfortunately. And that's a really great way to be able to show that, and we will continue to prove the value of that campaign, especially if it isn't even reaching their goals. Do they know if it's selling on their back end? Things along those lines, because it might just be that has happened. So, yeah.
I run into interesting people.
It's interesting to hear the chemical one. Do you guys get a lot of restrictive ads and just Google?
So he had smart ads, and then he had somebody come in and rebuild his whole website, and she screwed it all up, and then she put everything into one ad on Google Ads. That's it. Wow. I mean, I don't know. It was ridiculous. And I'm looking at this, and I'm not an expert like probably most of you in this room, but I know better because I've been there, done that 10 years ago, right? So I tried to bail him out and cleaned up his website, and tried to do the 384 ads, and I loved all that.
Yeah.
All those titles, because it was like, wow, you can really be creative with it. And I was a whole lot easier than coming up with 2, right?
Yeah.
Or 3. And but then he's a shiny object kind of person, and he decided that GoDaddy could do a better job. So he's now gone to GoDaddy, which GoDaddy doesn't even do ads.
Yeah, that's
So I had to clean up that mess when he rolled my website, because I cleaned it up, and then they rolled it over to GoDaddy, and they didn't do anything. They were just using my website still, and then he broke all his ads. So then I had to go in and clean all that up. So I just let it go. He's not my client anymore, but these are the kinds of things that, the shiny object, I want it now. Well, when you're in a niche market like that, I mean,
you have to be specific. And another thing with those smart ads too, it's not specific to search. It's those ads show across the Google network, and it might not necessarily be showing in the right place. And yes, you're getting all those impressions, but it's coming from a display ad, but that doesn't make sense if you're trying to drive conversions on the search side.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to really be careful on how you run them. Otherwise, you are going to get a lot of wasted dollars on places that your ad may be showing that doesn't make sense or not even relevant to what your business is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So I have a question.
Okay.
Would you recommend splitting out ad groups even further if you only get 3 RSAs per ad group, or is that a terrible recommendation?
It depends on what's in your campaign and your ad group already. So Google got rid of broad match modifier, which I cried a little bit when that happened. My coworkers know. I literally was like, why are you doing this to me? And with that, it allowed you to have the different formats of different keywords and just rotate between each other. So once they got rid of that, they were really forcing us to use more broad. So the idea was using more broad, and now that you have the automated bidding strategy on top of it, it is supposed to find the most relevant keyword or query out there for you, and being able to drive those ads as down the funnel as possible. So the idea really was that if you have that option, you should have less ad groups. I don't agree with that. I think having very tight-knit ad groups, being able to drive more of those more specific ads are going to be the key to success. Because again, relevancy is super important. And you want to make sure that the keywords and the ad group and everything matches together. So it really depends on the goal too of your campaign and what kind of keywords you're running. If it's a super generic campaign or super generic keyword set that you're trying to run, I would say keep it at that and do keyword insertion and see what it does and see how that pulls in. And then you're going to be able to see, okay, this actually makes sense. It's working or not working. That's a really great way of that. Or if you really want to control the message that you're getting out there, then expand even further. It really just depends on how niche that market is and how generic or ungeneric those keywords are.
Is keyword insertion something specific to RSAs, or was this around way back in the day?
Yeah, this has been around for a while. I call it like an OG way of doing, like adding your insertion ad in there. So what it does is it pulls in the query after a certain amount of character limits into the actual ad. So you can say like buy and then do keyword insertions like say furniture, and somebody types in blue furniture, your ad shows up and it actually inserts blue furniture, buy blue furniture in that headline or the description line. So a really great way. I utilize that more often than none, especially when it comes to ad groups that are not as specific or a little more generic, or just trying to drive a lot of traffic into that campaign.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
And then one more question. Whenever you're testing the different descriptions and the headlines, how many do you recommend testing at once, and how long do you let it go before you say, oh, I want to try something new and better?
So typically I run, so Google does require you to have 5 headlines at one time, and then 2 description lines at one time. So that is forced. So you have to do that.
Okay.
So I would say add more to it. So if you want to, I would say go to 10 first and see what you need to do and how that works and rotate that. And then same thing, adding 2 more description lines. The more options you give it, the more often Google will test that out. Typically I give it 90 days before I say, hey, this isn't working, and then go on to the next. 90 days is a really nice good rule of thumb, 3 months. It's let the account settle. It's already ramped up. And this is a really great way to say, oh, okay, our CTR is stable. It's going really well. Some accounts and some ads might ramp up much faster if you start seeing CTR just staying stable. And that's a really great way to kind of gauge that, is if you know CTR has been pretty stable, consistent across the board. But if you start seeing your CTR tank, it's time to start creating new ads and start testing out different options.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Molly has a question online. Have you ever isolated dynamic keyword insertion as a performance variable and found anything significant?
I actually haven't. I haven't done that. That is something that I actually want to try. That's actually really, really interesting. I think that would be really cool to test out, just to be able to drive further down that funnel. One of our clients is a furniture client. They have it's a unique niche business, but we have a lot of different kind of keywords. I mean, they have every possible appliance and furniture and everything under the sun there. And so sometimes it's really hard to think of new keywords or think of new ads or try to be as specific as possible. That would be a really great way to just continue to drive that and just isolate it and do just that. Thank you, Molly. I'm going to test that.
Okay. And that was, it looks like you answered all of the online questions. So
Awesome.
Thank you again, Cindy, for coming.
Thank you, guys.
I have a question. To pin or not to pin?
It's not to pin.
Not pin?
Not to pin. I take that back. Only because I like to pin the brand name. I only pin that, and I don't pin anything else.
Okay.
And let it run. But then I also let another RSA not pin and let the brand just kind of rotate and does what it does. I've actually noticed that the one that I don't pin does perform better than the one that is pinned, which is kind of crazy. But that's what you kind of figure happens. But again, test out and see what works and how does it perform, and continue to testing is number one in paid search.
How do you account for like do you plan out like what are the possible combinations that could like not really represent our brand?
I wish I could do that. There's so many different combinations. I had a client ask if I could go and pull all the different combinations. Google does provide that for you. The different combinations, how many impressions it shows. And I kept scrolling. I could not screenshot it all. I was like, eventually, okay, you know what? That's not happening. I can't do this because there's so many different combinations. But you do get an idea of what works best just based off of impression. Again, it's directional. Yes, you can get 1 million impressions on that one ad, but how do you know that somebody actually clicked on it and converted? So there is that big caveat that when it comes to Google, we really want to let's force them to be like, hey, let's add some more conversions, guys. We want to know what's working. Just to be able to see a little bit more than what they have.
Path 1 or path 2?
I don't do either.
You don't do either. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on the account, but I tend to stay away from those. Yeah, because I really want to be able to have the focus on the headlines and the description lines and let that rotate because it's more important. I also don't think people actually pay attention to what they're clicking on either. Unless it's like the very first one, they're like, okay, that makes sense, click on it. And so that's really the thing. It's like, is the first headline so important? That's what calls out. Or is it the relevancy of your keyword? Because it bolds it for you if that matches the query. That's more important, I would say, because it stands out to you. And that's why relevancy is so important. So, it's again, testing everything out and knowing what's working and what doesn't work for you. Because every account's different, every brand is different, and how you structure and how you build it is going to be different. And the different businesses, unfortunately, there's so many different ones out there, but you have to stay ahead of the game and be competitive where you can.
How much data would you say, like impression count or click count, would you say for like this is too segmented for an ad group?
I think it's more, I can't really give it a number because it's like, it depends on the niche of the market. So like an education company might only have like 10,000 impressions and 5,000 clicks, while a huge rent to own company might have 1 million impressions and 500,000 clicks. So it just really depends. CTR is going to be the big important one there. You know, is it the higher click-through rate? Because that's going to be the relevancy. Somebody sees the ad, searches for it, and clicks on it. That's going to be probably the biggest game, the signifier for you to whether that campaign is working or that ad is working or not. Okay. Anything else, guys?
No, looks like that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.